Donald Trump contracted COVID-19 and refused to take part in a virtual head-to-head.
Tonight, Donald Trump in the arena. His first primetime network appearance since falling ill with coronavirus.
So instead, we got dueling town hall meetings on different channels at the same time. You could cross America's political divide with the flick of the remote control.
With just 19 days to go, the president makes his case.
My goal is to fight for you and fight for your family.
Donald Trump was pressed on his failure to explicitly disavow white supremacy in the first television debate.
I denounced white supremacy, okay? I denounced white supremacy for years.
He was then invited to disavow QAnon, a far-right conspiracy theory that alleges that a cabal of Satan-worshipping pedophiles is plotting against Donald Trump. He failed to do so.
I know nothing about QAnon.
I just told you.
I know very little. You told me, but what you tell me doesn't necessarily make it fact. I hate to say that. I know nothing about it. I do know they are very much against pedophilia. They fight it very hard.
The words of a president matter.
Absolutely.
No matter whether they're good, bad, or indifferent, they matter.
The Joe Biden town hall was like a different genre of programming from a different political age.
We've been most effective as a world leader, in my humble opinion, not just by the exercise of our power, the most powerful nation in the world, but the power of our example.
Lower volume, lower energy, a policy conversation rather than an hour of political combat.
In politics, grudges don't work. They make no sense. I really mean it.
He presented himself as a unifying figure, an elder who could transcend America's great political fracture.
If I'm elected president, you will not hear me race-baiting, you will not hear me dividing, you'll hear me trying to unify.
Many Americans are yearning for a presidency you can have on in the background. And the Biden town hall gave a preview of what that would sound like.
Good evening, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
I have to say, you have a great smile.
But for now, Donald Trump is continuing on with his performative presidency.
Next year is going to be better than ever before.
A high decibel style that's always generated TV ratings, but one that the polls suggest is struggling to attract enough votes.
Have a good evening and thanks for being with us.
France has reported a large jump in new COVID-19 cases ahead of a nighttime curfew which is being imposed on Paris and 8 other cities. That comes in tomorrow. A further 30,621 infections are confirmed on Thursday. That's up from 22,591 the day before. And yesterday, French police also raided the homes of senior government and health officials as part of an investigation into their handling of the pandemic. Let's cross to Paris and hear from the journalist Sarah Canal. Sarah, thanks very much for joining us. Tell us, how worried are people in France about the rising number of infections?
Well, hello. Well, it's actually very worrying. As you mentioned yesterday, France registered a new record with more than 30,000 new contagions and 88 deaths in only one day. And the healthcare system is starting to get very busy. We have 33% of the intensive care units here, the beds in the country, occupied by COVID patients. Doctors are exhausted. And, well, the curfew will come into effect tonight. So there is concern amongst the people.
Yeah, what will this curfew do then? How restrictive is it?
Well, it will last for at least 4 weeks in Paris and other 8 cities such as Lyon or Marseille. No one will be able to leave their homes from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. Restaurants, movie theaters, cultural venues will also have to shut down at night. It is recommended to reduce private gatherings to 6 people, but public transportation will continue to function for those coming back from work and healthcare or essential workers who might also use public transportation. Fines will range from 135 euros to even 1,500 if you break the curfew twice. The main goal, basically, as Emmanuel Macron said in his televised interview, is to reduce the private gatherings, birthdays, parties, social events, but to keep the economy going and avoid shutting down schools and also workplaces.
And how are people feeling about this in France? Are they with the government on this?
Well, I would say there are mixed feelings. The French are quite divided according to some surveys. Some see this as an attack against their individual freedom. It's something that we've been seeing here a lot since the wave of COVID and the French government started to implement new restrictions. But others believe that this is necessary and are concerned actually about the recent figures. Students, restaurant and bar owners are not happy about the restrictions, but some also say that, well, if that's what they have to do, they will do it.
In the first instance where we first encountered coronavirus across Europe, France had one of the strictest lockdowns, didn't it? You know, really quite strict compared to Scotland and to UK anyway. Is it likely that we'll see a situation like that again?
Well, it's very difficult. Macron actually said that he's doing anything in his hands, both himself and the government, to avoid a total lockdown. And this is why this curfew that will last for 4 weeks or even 6 weeks, that's his intention, but he will need parliamentary approval. It's quite strict, according to people in the streets who don't want to go back to the lockdown that we experienced back in March. So they are trying to do anything they can to avoid the situation that French experienced here in the first wave. But if the figures keep increasing, maybe more measures will have to be taken into account.
Sarah, tell us then about this investigation. The health minister and other officials' homes, they were raided, weren't they? What's the background to all of this?
Exactly. Well, they are being investigated for how they handled the pandemic. So in other words, if they acted appropriately based on the information that they had back in March in the first wave, if they did enough to prevent the crisis, or if they failed to help those in need. And that includes many aspects: the timing of the lockdown, the implemented measures, the debate over masks. But is this investigation out of proportion? That's what people are asking here. Well, let's see what this investigation leads, what's the evidence. But there are two main aspects regarding how authorities handled the first wave of COVID here. First of all, the debate over masks. So in the first weeks of the pandemic, the government played down the importance of wearing a mask. They kept saying that they were useless. Some believe that they said that because they were in short supply. And the second aspect is the timing of the lockdown. So in France, it took a few more days than, for instance, Italy or Spain to impose a lockdown. And one of the reasons is because they did not want to cancel local elections. Many people were encouraged to go to vote on a Sunday, and the lockdown was immediately imposed the day after. And actually, the former health minister, who's also under investigation, implied in an interview that by that time they knew, or they could have known, that the figures were already bad. So this is what this special court is trying to determine, whether or not they could have prevented the crisis here. No one is accused as of today, but the police searched the homes and offices of big figures: the former Prime Minister Edouard Philippe, the current health minister, his predecessor, and other health authorities. We'll see what happens. And this is happening actually because many organizations and citizens filed around 100 complaints from COVID patients to healthcare workers or police officers, even prison personnel, accusing the government of not providing enough masks and medical equipment.
Okay, Sarah Canals in Paris, thanks very much.
The department store chain John Lewis will be converting surplus outlets into housing as part of plans to revive the company's fortunes. The high street downturn already affecting the business has been rapidly accelerated by the coronavirus pandemic. Let's talk more about the plans now with the retail expert Kate Hardcastle. Afternoon, Kate.
Hi, good afternoon.
And this is part of John Lewis Partnership's 5-year plan then under the new boss Sharon White, and she's also talking about expanding financial services and online shopping as well.
Yes, there's a lot of trust in the name still, the brand Lewis, John Lewis brand name and Waitrose brand name, and they're going to look to lean into that trust to accentuate their offer. They're looking at, as you mentioned, residential properties. The idea of these residential properties very much at a trial stage, but would be created with John Lewis being your landlord, fully furnished with John Lewis products, even offering Waitrose food on delivery. They're saying they can do the whole turnkey solution. And that trust is going to be a big part of it, because we know there are always challenges. There's the good, the bad, and the ugly of the rental market. This could be a trusted known name there. And ditto with the financial services. They already have the strongest retail credit card, they say, that's out there, but this is going to help them accentuate their offer with lots of insurances and savings premiums. So this is a brand that knows that its future isn't entirely in retail, but what they're trying to do is look at the complementary services that retail requires and accentuate the business. They've called this a bold set of plans. I would say 70% of it are plans that this business needed to make because they were at a critical point even before COVID hit.
And this plan also involves John Lewis Partnership saving $300 million each year by 2022. Does that mean more job cuts?
It looks like it. The offer they've put to us as customers through this plan is that we're going to see increased customer service. But to do that, they've said they need to make cost savings. The cost savings particularly look to be at head office. So I see there an organisation becoming very lean. How could they do that? They're probably going to use a lot more partners. So when it comes to something like financial services, they would use their brand but partner into other organisations already delivering in that. Now, that's not new in business, but that means that a business can become a lot less top-heavy when it comes to running itself and trying to save those costs.
Do you think price matching products to its rivals, which is a thing that John Lewis was really well known for, is that going to be a thing of the past now?
Never knowing the undersold has always served John Lewis well, up until a point that we saw this race to the bottom on price, where many organisations, some of them very down on their luck, would really put loss leaders out in terms of prices, and John Lewis would just day by day absolutely hit that price point, taking a hit on their profits. That's not sustainable for a business that wants to keep going. So what they've said is they're going to do lots of research, but this will be replaced next year with some other kind of value commitment. I guess what they're hoping by then is they will start this evolvement of the company, and they need not maybe as relying on every single sale, but looking instead for a quality of sale that comes through.
Just briefly, Kate, they own Waitrose as well, John Lewis. They seem to be doing a bit better.
Yes, we know there was the acrimonious split from Ocado, the party they'd worked with for a long time in terms of their food delivery. Waitrose are now delivering themselves the products in their own right, but there's a big hit against Ocado and M&S.
Okay, thanks for now, Kate. That's the retail expert, Kate Hardcastle.
Smart speaker
and BBC Sounds.
BBC Radio Scotland. It's 1 o'clock and this is Lunchtime Live with Lucy Whites and Andrew Black.
In the next half hour, Boris Johnson tells businesses to get ready for the possibility of a no-trade deal Brexit. Are Scottish companies ready?
How are musicians paying the bills after losing most of their work due to coronavirus restrictions?
And we look ahead to a busy weekend of Scottish football, including the first Old Firm game of the season.
But first with the news, here's Christine Finnegan. There have been another 9 deaths registered in Scotland of people who tested positive for COVID-19. The number of confirmed cases has also risen by 1,196 over the past 24 hours. In her briefing this afternoon, the First Minister again stressed the importance of following the current restrictions in place across the country. And ahead of tomorrow's Old Firm derby, she made a plea to football supporters to play by the rules.
You mustn't go round to somebody else's house to watch the match. None of us, not just football supporters, but none of us should be going into each other's homes at the moment unless it is for an essential purpose, such as childcare or looking after a vulnerable person. And I'm afraid, and I know that this statement is possibly a controversial one in Scotland, I readily acknowledge that. I'm afraid that watching football, no matter how essential I know it might feel to some, does not fall into that essential category.
In the past hour, Boris Johnson has said the UK needs to get ready for no deal when the Brexit transition period ends in December. The Prime Minister suggested that a summit of European leaders was unwilling to give Britain a Canada-style free trade agreement, and while he said he was willing to keep talking, he'd prepare for an Australian-style relationship with the EU. That would effectively mean no deal at all.
I have to make a judgment about the likely outcome and to get us already. And given that they have refused to negotiate seriously for much of the last few months, and given that this summit appears explicitly to rule out a Canada-style deal, I've concluded that we should get ready for January the 1st with arrangements that are more like Australia's.
Lancashire's to move into England's highest coronavirus alert level. Local and regional leaders have agreed a deal which includes a multi-million-pound support package. The agreement has been criticised by some leaders in Liverpool, who say their Tier 3 deal is less favourable to some businesses. Disagreements also persist between the UK government and other regional leaders, including the Labour mayors of Greater Manchester and North Tyne.